Hey everyone. So I wanted to talk about Canadian folk horror, actually. This is a kind of, I guess it's like a little bit of a movie review type thing. But actually, I was looking for this movie, which I was convinced was Canadian, and it's not. Um, and then so I did a search for Canadian folk horror. I'm Canadian anyway, so, I had joined a group on Facebook for folk horror. And I think, I had done like this social study type thing about groups on Facebook and all the eccentric groups, and the most contentious one being vintage fantasy art, which surprised me. That was one of my previous videos. So after I had, sort of not gotten bored, but eased off a bit on that group, I joined folk horror because I thought, oh, actually, if I'm researching pagan movies for a Pagan Witch movie review, that the most kind of number of pagan movies seem to be tagged as folk horror in popular culture. So that's probably a good place for me to look for them. Anyway, I came across this article by James Grainger, who is a writer for the Toronto Star and the Toronto Star, and also a critic, and he's an author also. I think he wrote a horror short story. Anyway, he wrote this article about why folk horror is not so popular in Canada, and I'm here to argue with him because apparently I like to argue with strangers on the internet who don't know who I am. So I'm saying that that sounds really menacing, as if they don't know who I am. I am the Alpha and the Omega. No, they just because why would they? Anyway, he was claiming that the reason, seemingly, that folk horror is not so popular in Canada is kind of a result of being a bit too woke, I guess, or um, like there's a whole sort of group of people who seem to believe that folk horror, the definition of folk horror is um, that you have to have like a group of normies or kind of like generic so-called relatable people who come into a strange community of people who are practicing some kind of bizarre religion, which is scary, which is not my definition of folk horror. To me, that is not a genre, that is a trope. That is just something that got copied a lot because of the popularity of The Wicker Man, and it shouldn't have been copied. People should write new stories. Um, to me, the genre is about people living in rural communities, and they're relying on nature for sustenance and subsisting on nature, and also crafting a lot of things out of nature, wood and stone and straw, and like the Three Little Pigs, if you will. Anyway, they and so it has this very handmade look to everything, which actually has a spookier. It ends up casting a much spookier atmosphere than something, for me anyway, set in a like a downtown New York or something. Anyway, so he was saying like it, it becomes problematic if you're because Canada is a country which was kind of founded on colonialism, like the States and like many other countries. But when you have that, then you have these two cultures. It's not like Ireland, where you could have a folk horror about two sets of people encountering each other who are kind of ethnically the same or similar. Um, and one is practicing an ancient religion and the other is as if modern, and then they get shocked. You can't really do that in Canada because then you're encountering like the Mi'kmaq and the Iroquois, and then it's like if you cast them as the villain, then it's insensitive, to say the least. But what struck me about that is he was kind of jumping to the conclusion that the main characters would be white people, which I thought was interesting. Because I don't see why you can't have a folk horror where the main characters are indigenous and the horror is coming, like the scary part is actually coming from the interlopers. Um, for instance, I think actually there was a film that was done a little bit like that, but it was maybe like quite light on the horror. But yeah, I mean, I shared that one as a folk horror because it was sort of interesting and it was sort of it's from the 90s though, so it was a while ago. Anyway, yeah. So I don't agree with him about that. I think that with the vast landscape, also, um, so you've got like Sagawi Kuna or like The Edge of the Knife, which is that Haida film, which is definitely a folk horror movie, and then that old movie from 1977, old, the year I was born. Um, there was a movie called Rituals, which I believe was hugely influence on the movie The Ritual because it was about this group of men who go hiking, and but in this case in Canada, and then they encounter these strange ritualistic practices going on kind of in the woods, and I think that was a kind of pretty much a folk horror movie, and even according to the trope, very much on brand. So I was kind of surprised that he was saying so vociferously that it hasn't caught on in Canada. I think that there's definitely seeds of it. I think it could be more though, given how much of Canada is rural and how kind of inspiring the landscape is. I think that there's a great possibility. Anyway, but yeah, there's so much from First Nations folklore, legends, or beliefs, if you will, of supernatural things that I don't understand why films can't be made by First Nations people that would be popular. I mean, especially nowadays when really like feature films can kind of be made on a phone. Um, if someone has the skill, I don't see why it has to cost the moon as well. Anyway, yeah, I guess I was not as vociferous as I thought. Like I thought this was going to be a whole tirade that was going to be very long and involved, but that was it really. I just wanted to say that like the assumption that the main characters have to be like Archie Andrews is kind of ridiculous. Um, no, the main character can be anyone. Um, Trickster series. That's a folk horror, I think. Anyway, that's also really good. Watch Trickster. Okay, bye for now.